All right, let's talk about the book of Joshua. When you hear that name, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of people, and let's be honest, it's one of the most difficult books in the Bible. It just seems full of violence, conquest, and, well, a whole lot of exclusion.
And this idea that Joshua is this bloodthirsty, xenophobic text, that's not just coming from critics like Richard Dawkins. Plenty of believers really struggle with it too. They read these commands for what sounds like total destruction, and it can feel pretty repulsive. Just like the scholar Robert Coote says, it's a tough read.
But what if we've been asking the wrong questions about it all along? What if the main point isn't what we think it is? A scholar named David G. Firth has this really fascinating take. He suggests that maybe, just maybe, the book's central theme isn't about conquest, but about belonging. It's not about drawing lines to keep people out, but about redefining who gets to be in.
So here's the big idea from Firth. The book of Joshua is less about ethnic lines and way more about covenantal ones. In other words, the text is constantly poking at this really provocative question: who actually gets to be one of God's people? Is it about your family tree, your DNA, or is it about something else entirely?
And the way the book shows us the answer is actually pretty brilliant. It doesn't just lecture us. Instead, it tells two stories back to back about two very, very different people. And this contrast, it's like a key that unlocks the whole message of the book.
So first up, we meet the ultimate outsider. This is someone who by every single definition of the time should have been the enemy. Her name is Rahab. And think about her resume for a second. First, she's a Canaanite, one of the very people Israel is there to fight. Second, she's a prostitute, which puts her on the fringes of even her own society. She is, in every single way you can imagine, the other. She's the person who is supposed to be excluded, period.
But then, something absolutely incredible happens. Rahab gives this stunning speech where she declares her faith in Yahweh, the God of Israel. She's heard the stories about the Exodus, and she believes them, and then she acts on that faith by hiding Israel's spies. So what's the result? She and her entire family, all foreigners, aren't just saved. They are brought into the people of Israel to live among them for good.
Now, right after this amazing story of inclusion, the book flips the script completely. To really hammer the point home, it introduces us to Rahab's polar opposite.
Meet Achan. This guy is the ultimate insider. He's a full-blooded Israelite. He's got a perfect pedigree from the top-tier tribe of Judah. In fact, the book goes out of its way to trace his family tree back 3 generations, just to show you how much he belongs. He's got all the right credentials.
But Achan, this perfect insider, completely betrays the covenant. He steals forbidden loot from a conquered city, all for his own greed. And his act of faithlessness is so serious that the story treats him as if he has become one of the enemy, as if he's become a Canaanite himself. He and his entire family are cut off from Israel.
Do you see the incredible reversal happening here? Rahab, the foreign outcast, acts in faith and is welcomed in. Achan, the pedigreed insider, acts faithlessly and is cast out. The dividing line in the book of Joshua suddenly becomes crystal clear. It's not about blood, it's not about your tribe or ethnicity. It's all about faithfulness to the covenant.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's a really powerful story, but maybe it's just a one-off, an exception to the rule? Well, it turns out this Rahab and Achan story isn't an exception at all. It actually sets up a pattern that we see repeated all throughout the book.
We see it again with the Gibeonites. They're another Canaanite group who literally trick their way into a peace treaty. But guess what? They get integrated into Israel's community, even serving at the main sanctuary. We see it with Caleb, one of the greatest heroes of the story, who the text makes a point of calling a Kenizzite, a non-Israelite, and holds him up as the perfect example of faithfulness. And we even see it in the laws. Things like the cities of refuge are specifically set up to provide justice for both the native-born Israelite and the foreigner living among them.
So, what is the big takeaway from all of this? When you put all these pieces together, it seems like the book of Joshua is intentionally and radically redrawing the very boundaries of what it means to belong.
At the end of the day, according to this reading, being an Israelite in the book of Joshua isn't really about your bloodline or where you were born. It's about being part of a community defined by a shared commitment, a shared faithfulness to a covenant with God. The book is making this huge theological point that who you are is defined by your loyalties and your actions, not by your ancestry.
And that leaves us with a pretty wild question to chew on, doesn't it? If an ancient book that we've always thought of as being hyper-exclusive and all about us versus them was actually at its very core challenging those ethnic boundaries and blowing up the definition of us, what does that say about the boundaries that we draw in our own world today?